question, grab your hook. Join the fun, come take a look. Wool and yarn, we chicken sleep. Time for question of the week.
So our question of the week: what is the first step in most crochet projects? So for me, this would be my way of going around a project. I would think about what I wanted to make. So if I wanted to make a hat, for example, I'd be thinking about what sort of style of hat I wanted, how many colours I wanted to make it in, if I have a specific yarn I want to make it in, or am I going to buy yarn specifically for the project, because those are two different ways of dealing with it. So if I was buying yarn specifically for the project, I'd just find a hat that I like the look of, look at the pattern, decide whether or not, most patterns will give you a bit of an idea of the stitches that are used, the hook size that are used, the amount of yarn and the colours of the yarn. If I wanted something that was specifically, that looked identical, that was the same, I'd then look at whether or not I could buy the yarn in the UK, because I'm UK based, probably tell from my accent, and if it was a US yarn, it's whether I'd be able to get that in the UK if I wanted it to look exactly the same. If not, I would then start looking to see, well, what substitutes of yarn could I buy? So I wouldn't have bought the pattern at this point. I'm still looking to see whether or not the yarn would be something I could get hold of. So that would be my process if I was buying yarn to match the pattern. If I had yarn, I would be looking at what yarn have I got, and therefore what hats, so because I'm looking at a hat project, what hats work with that yarn. So both the weight of the yarn and the amount of yarn that I've got. So there are ways to do that. Ravelry is a great one to be able to do that within, because you can adjust and find patterns for certain weights and for certain amounts of yarn. So that would be the way that I would go around that. And then at that point, I would buy the pattern if it was a purchase pattern, and then I'd start the project from there. Best tips: read through the pattern, make sure you understand the special stitches if there are any. If you don't understand the special stitches, maybe do some chains and run through the special stitches before you start, because what you don't want to do is to be sort of part way through a project and then really struggle with that section of it. If there's generally on most patterns, there's some details on there to get hold of the pattern designer, so you can reach out to them and ask a question. It can well be that if you have a look, there might be a YouTube or some form of video, not necessarily on YouTube, to be able to see that. So I would line my ducks up. That's what I would do if I was really planning a project. Sometimes I just sit down and think, do you know what, I'm just going to make a hat, and I will get my yarn and I'll get a hook that corresponds, and I'll just start making a hat, and I'll just make one that's one that I've made before and I don't need to think about a pattern for. So sometimes I'll do that and just do it out of my head, but I suppose that depends on whether that's either in your skill set or the way that you work. So for some people, it's just not the way that they work. But hopefully that helps you to start thinking about the steps in planning a project.